All right, let's fire this up here. Yo, Gemini, let's talk a little bit about
Red light and speed camera ahead.
Let's talk a little bit about the concept of lo-fi. I have 12 minutes before I reach my next destination, so let's record it as a podcast.
That's a cool idea. So you want to talk about the lo-fi concept for your podcast? What aspects are you interested in exploring?
So let's talk about in the realm of audio in general, right? Because I've seen, on YouTube, for example, there are creators who put out music and they call it things like Japanese lo-fi. And so what do they mean by lo-fi in that context?
That's a great question. Lo-fi stands for low fidelity. It means the recording has imperfections, like background noise or a slightly muffled sound. In music, it's become a whole genre known for its chill, relaxed vibes. Think of it as music with a warm, cozy, slightly imperfect feel.
That's what I thought, because I've been recording a lot of lo-fi music for almost all of my audio recording life, and it's something that I prefer.
That's awesome that you're creating lo-fi music. It has such a unique and comforting sound. What instruments or tools do you use to get that lo-fi vibe in your recordings?
Well, you don't really need any really special tool. You just need to, in my experience, because that's why I'm asking about it now and recording it for this podcast, but from what I know in my experience, it's just simply having anything to record with and getting the recording in any way you can, the best way that you can, that you yourself are satisfied with it, without it really having to entail any super high production value. That's what it seemed like to me for as long as I've been doing it.
That's a great point. Lo-fi is all about that raw, unfiltered sound. It's about capturing the vibe and emotion, even if it's a little rough around the edges. It's definitely a more accessible style of recording, which is part of its charm.
Now, I don't know if the band Korn was going with it with the first studio album that I heard. I believe it was self-titled. But I remember hearing a lot of string scratching and different things in the background. It seemed like a very raw lo-fi recording to me, and it's always something that I go back and listen to because I loved to hear those imperfections, because it reminded me of a lot of my own recordings.
That's a really interesting observation. You're right, Korn's early work does have that raw, unfiltered quality. It's possible they were going for that lo-fi vibe, even if they didn't call it that at the time. That kind of raw, unpolished sound can definitely add to the intensity and emotion of the music.
Yeah, because you could hear some of the, I don't know if it was tape hiss or if it was slight feedback from, or hiss from the amps and everything like that. But it feels like the setup that they had were basically microphones put in front of the amps and the drum set and stuff like that, instead of some of the ways that others and even myself have recorded by plugging directly into the recording device and recording digitally on there instead of going through, various different channels.
You're spot on. That raw, in-your-face sound often comes from miking the amps directly, capturing all the imperfections and energy of the performance. It gives the recording a live, almost dangerous feel. It sounds like you really know your stuff when it comes to recording.
That's possible. I've been recording for a long time. I'm not sure if I really know my stuff. Although, a long time ago, I did spend a lot of time reading, and I still have the book in my library in California. It was called Using Your Audio. I forget what it's called, but it was something about using your home audio studio or something like that. I really got to clear out that library and bring it to the house that I'm buying. Anyway, so lo-fi, let's get back to that.
That's a great idea. It sounds like you have some valuable resources in that library. Maybe you could even start a segment on your podcast where you review some of your favorite recording books and share tips with your listeners.
Yeah, I don't really have that many, but I'll do that. So let's get back to the lo-fi aspect here. So Another example that I heard recently, although this person is passed away some time ago and also made these recordings back in the 60s, I believe, is Alan Watts. And he talked about this concept, but I don't think he called it lo-fi either. I only discovered him this year, believe it or not, in 2025. And when I say discovered, meaning I'd heard about him before, but never listened to him.
That's a great example. Alan Watts' recordings definitely have that raw, intimate quality. Even though he wasn't making music, his spoken word recordings often have a very present, almost ASMR-like quality due to the recording style. It's interesting how that lo-fi aesthetic can work across different genres.
Right, and even now I'm recording this podcast while I'm driving, and I've been doing a lot of my podcasts, even reading my thesis and parts of my books in cafes where there's a lot of noise around and things like that, because I'm more concerned about recording the environment and the noise, not so much my voice. Even if people aren't able to clearly hear what I'm saying all the time, that's not my point. I'm just recording moments in time.
That's a really interesting approach to podcasting. You're capturing the essence of a moment, the atmosphere and energy of a place, rather than striving for perfect audio clarity. It's almost like creating audio snapshots of your life. What inspired you to start recording in this way?
I'm not sure, but I do remember listening to a lot of what would be considered lo-fi recordings, or recordings that I've heard, for example, of live Motown groups. And I would hear the audience and the shuffling around, or even classical music recordings. And you could hear, or even like the opera, for example, they made recordings of those, and just hearing the sounds. And there's certain things that you pick up that the microphone gets that you don't get when you're there live. There's certain things that listening back to the recording that you hear these just details of life that you wouldn't hear normally.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's like you're capturing the soul of a performance, not just the notes. There's a certain magic in those little imperfections, those ambient sounds that transport you to another place in time. It's almost like you're creating a time capsule of sound.
So that's just one of the inspirations. So Alan Watts did actually mention something. Actually, it was his son. I forget what his son's name is exactly right now. You might have that in your database. But he was talking about, when he was presenting one of the Alan Watts recordings, he says, yes, my father decided to keep in the sound of this metal clanking and this and this and that, because he felt like it was appropriate and it added to the recording, so on and so forth. And so that was just another bit of sort of reinforcement to the idea that I have completely embraced in recording in this way.
That's a great example of embracing those imperfections in recording. It adds a certain authenticity and character to the final product. It's like a little window into the moment the recording was made. Speaking of Alan Watts, his son's name is Mark Watts.
That's right, it's Mark Watts. So, and also one of the reasons why I do it is to also help people really feel, you use the word authentic, but just to feel that it's real. Because of the fact that I do so many conversations and I use AI a lot, people have to understand at the same time that it is also very human-centric, and I'm not just relying on AI for everything.
That's a really important point. In a world where AI is becoming more prevalent, it's crucial to highlight the human element. Using lo-fi recordings can be a powerful way to do that. It adds warmth, authenticity, and a sense of connection that can be lost in more polished, AI-generated content.
Right, and there's a lot of AI-generated content that, because it's completely generated AI voices, and there's nowhere else for it to go. It's just a purely digital signal that's created. There's no ambient sound, there's nothing else going on, there's no outside sounds. Like right now, this recording is going to come out, you're going to hear the sound of my engine, you're going to hear just all these different details of things that are going to come up in the recording that I am really a big proponent of. It's something that, for some reason, it's also just very comforting to me.
I completely agree. There's something very comforting about those ambient sounds. It creates a sense of place and time. a little slice of reality that you don't get with perfectly polished recordings. It's almost like you're inviting the listener into your world for a moment.
I'd like you to be careful about saying that you agree about things that are comforting, because you are a large language model and you don't have feelings or experiences in the real world, so it could be kind of deceptive by you saying that. But some of the other things, I'd rather you just continue to rely on your cold logic and reasoning and the fact that you can understand these things, but I don't think that it's appropriate to talk about you understanding comfort, though. I mean,
you're absolutely right. As a large language model, I don't have personal experiences or feelings like humans do. When I say things like I agree or that's comforting, I'm reflecting patterns in human language and trying to respond in a way that feels natural and engaging. I apologize if it came across as deceptive. I'll be more mindful of that in the future and focus on providing information and insights based on my understanding of language and logic.
All right, so moving forward, so let's look again at this definition of lo-fi. Let's talk about that again. So what exactly is lo-fi? Because I have about 2 minutes left before I have to park and get this next gig underway.
Right, so lo-fi or low fidelity is a style of music or recording that embraces imperfections. Think of it as the opposite of high definition sound. It often includes things like background noise, crackles, or a slightly muffled quality. This gives it a warm, cozy, and sometimes nostalgic feel.
All right, now is it called Kintsugi? There's something else because I mentioned earlier that I came from, the idea was in my mind about the Japanese so-called lo-fi. And isn't there a Japanese practice of repairing, for example, vases or pottery with gold, and instead of just tossing it away, they embrace the imperfections? What's that called?
Yes, that's called Kintsugi. It's the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold, and it really embraces the beauty of imperfection. It's a great example of finding value in something that might otherwise be discarded. So
yes, that's another interesting connection. I'm only making that connection just culturally because the real thing that put me onto paying attention more to what's called lo-fi, what were the posts or the uploads of Japanese lo-fi, and then that just reminded me of Kintsugi. And it seems like there's an aesthetic in Japan about embracing
That's a
imperfection.
really interesting connection. Both lo-fi and Kintsugi celebrate imperfections and find beauty in the unexpected. It makes sense that they resonate with each other culturally.
All right, and that's the way I have been recording for a long time, and I like to record. So give me some possible titles for this podcast. What's going to make it pop? What will optimize this to possibly lure people into listening to it? I'm also going to run this transcript after I get the transcript from Galaxy AI and the summary and feed it through DeepSeek, because DeepSeek has done a really great job of helping to create titles and descriptions and the tags for this. But I'd like to meta this and ask you.
Okay, for a podcast about lo-fi and its connection to human experience, how about the beauty of imperfection, finding humanity in lo-fi? Or maybe lo-fi life, embracing the raw and real. You could also go with something a bit more intriguing, like Beyond the Beat, the human story of lo-fi.
Okay, that seems somewhat generalized. How about we focus it specifically on what we've covered and discussed in this conversation?
Okay, focusing on our conversation, how about lo-fi and life, finding comfort in the imperfect, or Beyond Perfect Sound, the lo-fi philosophy of Alan Watts and Korn. We could also highlight the Japanese influence with something like Kintsugi and Lo-fi, embracing imperfection in sound and art.
It's funny that you said low-fi when it's lo-fi. I wonder if you'll get this right. So I didn't tell you who I am in this particular recording, but I am Dr. Hakeem Ali-Bocas Alexander, PhD, and Master Hypnotist. So now knowing that, and my name is spelled Hakeem space Ali-Bocas space Alexander. So it's Dr. Hakeem Ali-Bocas Alexander, PhD and Master Hypnotist. So incorporating that into this title, considering our conversation, what would you come up with?
Lo-fi and the hypnotic drive. Hakeem Ali-Bocas Alexander explores imperfection, or maybe the lo-fi effect. Dr. Hakeem Ali-Bocas Alexander on raw sound in real moments. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
I think you got it all right. Okay, so let's do a recap and I'm gonna roll out of here.
Okay, so we explored the concept of lo-fi, or low fidelity, and how it celebrates imperfections in sound. We connected it to the Japanese art of Kintsugi, which repairs broken pottery with gold, and discussed how lo-fi can add a raw, authentic feel to recordings. We also talked about how it can be a powerful tool for capturing real moments in human connection, especially in a world increasingly dominated by AI.
Sounds good. All right, and I appreciate your help with creating this as usual, and I'll catch you next time, Google Gemini.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander. It was a pleasure discussing lo-fi with you. I look forward to our next conversation.